Start us off, Carter.
Do 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 do. Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd. His skin was pale and his eye was odd. He shaved the faces of gentlemen who never thereafter were heard of again. He trod a path that few had trod. Did Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. He kept a shop in. You know what? I'm not gonna.
Did we
I
just
won't
get copyrighted
force you.
already?
No. They don't copyright Broadway. Broadway's famously not a uber litigious protector of its copyright. You just put slime tutorial in front of it, and everything's fine.
Alright. That was a slime
Uh,
tutorial of Stevie Todd, which was what
yes.
you definitely said, but with a weird
Yes, I
accent.
definitely said that. Yes, but with a weirdly specific accent.
Real niche.
I decided to go mainstream Broadway as opposed to stomp for this one. Incidentally, I've been doing a lot of research on 30s movies for a thing that we're doing on Disney Desk, and I always forget there is a Sweeney Todd adaptation that existed before the musical existed, like early Hollywood. And I love old Hollywood movies. Whenever they do something fantastical or vaguely horror or fantasy or anything, it always has to have a framing device to assure the audience, no, this is set today, guys. Don't worry. Um, like that's why like all of the Disney princess movies start with the storybook to be like, well, it's current days. We're just telling you a story. Or like literally this Sweeney Todd adaptation, it fades back to the modern day as a barber's like cutting this dude's beard, and he's like, "Isn't that a crazy story?" And the guy like runs out of the room with like shaving cream all over him. So like this is what constituted for entertainment back in like the 40s when no one had any money.
I was gonna say there was a big war going on, and
Yeah, and there was a
no
war.
one had any money.
Anyway, welcome back to Don't Sleep on Football. Carter here.
I'm not Sweeney Todd.
Yes, I can't afford him. Well, no, because we should try. We should just try to bully. That's our project. Bully Josh Groban into coming on.
Okay. Very
Yeah,
kid
just no
friendly.
reason. You don't need a reason. Just bully Josh Groban into showing up for your show.
Yeah, I'm gonna write on it. What's he up to nowadays? Nothing.
I don't know. He might be working on another Broadway show or an album. I have no idea. Did he even? He did. It was. They just got to get him as Tony at some point. Anyway, the point is, we're doing the AFC today. If you tuned in last week, we kicked off the season by doing a off-season vibes. Before we get into the actual meat of the season, start talking about like how we think the season's going to go. Doing the classic the schedule czar stuff.
Yeah.
We figured it would be good to. We got to get you an outfit for that, like a Swami level thing.
Okay. All right. I'll support it for
Like
now, but it makes no sense if there's no actual like video element to this.
yeah, well then we can say we got the outfit and they can't prove it.
No, that's true.
But anyway, yeah, so before we dive in, we wanted to also do a quick rundown of the AFC, my side of the camp. While the NFC is sort of the wild card conference where, you have two or three unambiguously great teams near the top. It is a lot of like this team could easily fall out of the playoffs, this team could easily get into the playoffs, like a lot of teams waiting to ascend, a lot of teams who could possibly fall. The AFC has kind of stagnated over the last few years, with the sort of kingpins of the division or the conference being the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens, with the occasional surprise in between.
Yeah.
Shall we kick it off? We did the AFC South first, right?
Yes, we set the bar low because both South divisions are the weakest ones. So
Oh, God, yes. Yes, so in the spirit of that, it is time to kick everything off with the Houston Texans, the division winner last year. Sort of one of our darling baby boys from last season.
yeah, CJ
It,
Stroud specifically.
it was a hell of a journey with, like, so much of this podcast has been centered around the inexplicable ascension. The simultaneous 1-2 skidoo of the Texans playing themselves out of the first overall pick, the incessant clowning on them, only to watch them turn around and actually make something of themselves.
Yeah.
Last season was a bit of a disappointment. Not in terms of overall record, it was basically the same record they had. They went 10-7, ended up winning a wild card game emphatically against the Los Angeles Chargers before losing a close one to the Kansas City Chiefs.
A hint
But it
more
was
than
a
a one-score game.
yes, yeah, it was. it was close enough that you could convince yourself they were one big play away, but not actually that close. Um, but yes, they had a lot of ups and downs later in the season. They were unable to string 2 wins together. Basically, after week 8, they were unable to string together a pair of wins. Um, and basically, they did what all teams with a star quarterback who kind of underperformed do: threw their offensive coordinator under the bus. They got rid of Bobby Sloak in favor of Nick Caley. That's kind of their main move for the offseason. And then it is a bit of a rearrangement. They got rid of Laramie Tunsil, a perennial top 10 offensive tackle who had kind of had an off year last year. Brought in Cam Robinson, the somewhat controversial left tackle. Brought in Laken Tomlinson. And yeah,
Got Nick
basically it is.
Chubb too on the
Yes.
offensive side.
Yes. Oh, yes, of course. And also, largely, it was an off season of sort of kind of a stagnant off season in terms of like, if the chips were pushed in last year by bringing in Stephon Diggs and being like, we're going to air it out, it's going to be great. This is kind of the reaction to the sophomore slump, a little bit of a more conservative off season.
Yeah,
How are we feeling about the vibes for them?
I I think they're still. I think it's. I want to say it's like 20%. Like just they're confident in their division
Hmm.
because as we'll talk about them as it goes on, none of the other guys really like did anything super crazy or like did enough in my opinion that it's like, oh, you completely rearranged what you can do.
Right.
Um,
It is kind of crazy that the Jacksonville Jaguars traded for the second overall pick, and we're like, yeah, but it's not going to make a difference.
yeah, it's. I mean, it's that's the only one that's like, I think they can change like where they were because they kind of really like shit the bed last season. They were like the guys 2 seasons ago, and then they just 4-13 last year.
Right. Right.
I
It is
think.
so weird. Like, I think it really is. The division really does reframe so much of our Texans talk where it's like, they really underperformed this, that. And it's like,
Well, when we
yeah, well, the
started
Jaguars
this
had
CJ
expectations too and
Stroud,
crap
yeah,
themselves.
when we started the CJ Stroud like cult, it was like right after a playoff like run from the Jaguars. They were the
Right. They had
Jags.
an incredible comeback.
Um, yeah, no, I'm still vibing with their overall concept, their top players.
Mhm.
I'm not too worried for them in terms of like, oh, you guys are like screwed this year because they're in the AFC South, not the most
Mhm.
competitive division out there. Um, they were in one of the like since they were in one of the weaker divisions, they got weaker opponents and stuff. Although they do play the
Mhm.
Bills and the Chiefs in
Well, they
November
beat
and
the
early
Bills last
yeah,
year.
and late November for the Bills, early December for the Chiefs. But a lot can and they have the Ravens in October. Um, but a lot can happen over like between then and now.
Yeah, it really is like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think
It's a lot of hand wringing because they didn't live up to our expectations, but it's like, all right, but they still went 10-7, and they could easily go 10-7 this year too.
yeah. I guess the argument is like it's a matter of like oh yeah, it's like they seemed disappointing, and they would be like a worse team if they were in like the AFC North. Like if you swapped them and the Browns, they would look like dog shit
Right.
compared to
They
like
would
the
get like 7
Ravens
wins.
and
They would lose. They'd literally lose like 3 games.
but because of like how they look, also I'm not seeing a crazy amount of changes. Obviously, they're including things like their new rookies and stuff like that into their leagues. The trades like C.J. Gardner Johnson, Nick Chubb, those guys they got, where it's just like, all right, I feel like you're making things work enough that it's just like you you seem to be learning.
Hmm.
My expectations aren't crazy high for them. However, they are like I still can see them having a decent bit of success.
Right. I think we just were too quick to gas them as a Super Bowl contender. Like, the flaws that showed up this year were obvious in Stroud's rookie year, but just,
It was
it was
this,
on the
it was
they
the
just made
sophomore
all the
slump
plays on the
where it's just like,
margins.
let's see how this goes. Once again, I
Right. It's
we're also like they did go 10-7 last year. They weren't a bad team. Huh.
Right. It just looks ugly when you're like projecting them to be in the Super Bowl. You're wish
Yeah.
casting them to join sort of the high table as it were. But
Yeah.
again, it's like, yeah, they were basically the same team as the year before, but with worse injury luck. Yeah, and just sometimes the margins just get thinner. We talked about that with the Chiefs, where it's like you can only get lucky so many times. And so much of Stroud's rookie year was playing against a objectively also butt offensive line,
Yeah.
but like making more out of what he was doing, getting away from it, having better breaks. And those breaks just didn't really come as much last year. And like it really is just a year of rebranding in terms of like, yeah, we really are going to say Bobby was responsible for so much of this problem. And there is something to that because like the consistent theme was like Slowick came from the Shanahan tree where you have one way of doing things and you commit to it permanently. And it's like, well, you don't have the offensive line to do this zone blocking RPO scheme, and it doesn't really feel like you're fully taking advantage of Stroud's ability to create and sort of like, sort of make those high flying plays. So like maybe literally just, and they've talked about it, just handing more of this to CJ Stroud and letting him be more of the leader of the offense as opposed to, don't treat him like Jimmy Garoppolo. Don't treat him like Brock Purdy. He's not like a piece of the machine. He is the person setting like the rhythm of the machine.
Yeah.
Um, yes. So up next, the Indianapolis Colts. A God, it's so weird. It really is like it's crazy how much like the economy. It's 90% vibes. Like they were A9. They were literally like a game out of the playoffs, but it felt
It was
so
an
rancid.
ugly. It was like
One of the more hideous 8 and 9s in recent memory.
it was not pretty, and their big plan was to pick up Danny Dimes.
Yes, truly. If last season was at least a part of last year's goal was to see if Anthony Richardson was the quarterback of the future. And despite a really dazzling display in week one, where he had probably the best throw of the year, they have decided the answer is no. It seems like they have fully given up on the Anthony Richardson experience. Daniel Jones will be starting at quarterback for them. That was basically their main offseason get, on top of getting tight end Tyler Warren, who I have great expectations for, especially because he might be the only guy Daniel Jones can actually hit with passes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the vibes for them are horrendous right now. They are also going through kind of a difficult transition. Longtime owner Jim Irsay Jr. did pass away in
Yes.
the offseason. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of the decisions that are made for this team right now feel kind of just feel like they know they can probably fart out another season during the ownership. Because if they had a new owner, Frank Wright, or not Frank Wright, oh my God, their coach.
Shane
I'm
Steichen.
literally living
Shane.
Steichen. I'm literally living like 5 years in the past. Yeah, Steichen probably, and yeah, the management that's been there basically since since Andrew Luck retired. Why am I so locked in on
You
the
good?
Carson Wentz
Yeah.
era of the Colts? I don't know. It was such a fascinating time. I kind of felt bad for Carson Wentz then because it was so obvious he was like very sick from COVID. Those because it was announced he got COVID, and then they quietly changed the rules for isolation so he could play in the last 2 weeks. And you watch him play, and you're like, this man physically cannot be out there right now. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, basically, it feels like a year of like, let's just get to the playoffs and hope whatever ownership group takes over once all of like the sort of litigation and decision making happens. See, we went to the playoffs, and that's enough to survive for another year.
Yeah. No. I think. I think their whole thing is just going to be seeing if they can improve from middle of the pack, which is
Right.
what you want, what you don't want. Because
Yeah.
it's the argument of like you're at the point now where it's like I do we tank for draft picks or do we hope for like do we shoot like for something like to try and get higher in the division?
Right. Because
Because
yeah, they're in a weird
it's
spot. You're right.
it's that weird middle ground, and I think it's the argument of look at the conference that they're in. I think it's pretty clear that the AFC is a lot stronger as a conference than the NFC. I think
Yes.
I think that's pretty clear. Although NFC seems to be like last year and a little bit of this year so far with how they're rearranging teams and draft picks. They
Hmm.
seem to be coming up with their like for lack of a better word, their new true set of juggernauts
Yes.
because there was a period of time like roughly our first season and stuff where it's just like that like we did this show where it's like all right Cowboys like they it was like Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants all were in the playoffs that year. Um,
Right.
and only one stayed a playoff contender this last season.
Hmm.
And like the 49ers have been a juggernaut, but they've never been able to like they're hitting the Super Bowl, but they're not coming through in it.
Right. They're not breaking the
Yeah,
ceiling.
the Lions are starting to like get a lot. They had a lot of quick momentum,
Hmm.
and it's like, do we want to keep going? Where it's just like, so it's like that juggernaut picture, like and like the Packers are surprisingly good, and they only improved this offseason, in my opinion.
Right.
So it's like with the Colts, it's like, all right, you're like the juggernaut picture. The people who are getting paid to do good is Bills, Chiefs, Ravens. One can argue that if there's 100% healthy Joe Burrow and they gave him an offensive line worth being behind,
Hmm.
Bengals could still be in that picture. Texans are seeming like a strong contender, and it's just like, all right, are you good enough to beat up like the second place in a couple divisions, or do you want to fall?
Right. Well, see, that's the problem. The logic is we fucked up the quarterback pick. Let's just kind of take our vegetables, get like a top 10 pick, and go for, a quarterback. But you can't do that because you're all going to get fired if you
Yeah,
suck, probably. So you have to try and win. But the problem is, so really, this becomes like, this is basically what happened last year when they put Andy Dalton in over Bryce Young, where they're like, hey, man, I know you need to develop, I know you need reps, but like, we also need to see if this football team's good. Like, we
yeah,
need to see if the talent we've assembled around you is good because this isn't the team that Andrew Luck left that was considered a Super Bowl
no,
contender. A lot of the offensive line is gone. The defense is much weaker. The skill positions are weaker. Like, everything's just a little weaker. So you have to figure out if this team is even good enough to keep going with as like a whole. But also, you built the team around Anthony Richardson. You built the team around speedsters at wide receiver, and like the RPO game. And like, Daniel Jones just can't do that anymore. Like, I do kind of pity Daniel Jones to a certain extent because as someone, it's one of those things that one commentator pointed out and you can't unsee it. Someone just pointed out, it's like, yeah, what happened to Daniel Jones from that like one decent year he had? He tore his ACL and now he can't run as well, so the RPO game is out. And he had like a pretty serious neck injury, and he can't throw the deep ball anymore. And you really do just watch these highlights from like the last year and a half, and you're like, oh, he cannot hit anything like past 30 yards. So I'm like, so you're just gonna throw screen passes and dink and dunks the whole time?
yeah.
Like, it'd be one thing if like your backup was like Will Levis or someone with like a cannon arm, because at least then, or like,
You can throw
God, even
something
just
out
get,
there.
yeah, Jory, fuck, just pay Sam Darnold because at least it's like you've seen him be competent, so you can see if the rest of the team is competent. You're just in nowhere's land now. And like again, I like sometimes we go a little too far with like the nurturing of young quarterbacks where it's like the team is screwing it, the ESPN talking point like they don't respect Anthony Richardson. And it's like, yeah, but he didn't play well. And honestly, I think the big lesson, regardless of what happens for the rest of his career, is like now that like the transfer rules are different and you can like stay in college longer, I really think there's no incentive to come out early.
No.
Like because the margins are so thin for like GMs and coaches that like they're playing coaching not to get fired. Like, you know, if you're not good immediately, they're going to dump your ass. They're not going to coach you. I mean, when we get to Tennessee, I'll talk about that more, but it really is like, yeah, you kind of need to like get the experience, like as many reps as possible in college before you go to the NFL. Because if you're not ready to go, if you're not like fully immersed in like the art of quarterbacking, they're just not going to have the time for that shit.
Yeah, it's yeah, and it's like you could also do like what the Packers did, where it's just like, all right, Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years,
Mhm.
and then contracts lined up where it's like, yeah, you can get it. Like
Well,
here,
yes, that's true,
you got your
but no
stuff.
one has patience for that anymore.
Yeah, but it's like if you're a team down in the dumps and need a quarterback, you want somebody that can ball out week one. Like rookie
Mhm.
season, C.J. Stroud balled out like week one, and week one is obviously like month one. Um,
Yeah,
but it's just like,
right.
and then it's just like, all right, do we want to? It's like, do we want to use Daniel Jones to kind of help guide Anthony Richardson in something? Do we want to just he he's somebody that we can be like, all right, we're gonna get draft picks out of you.
Mhm.
Like, there's such a weird they're at such a weird zone, and I feel like they didn't make the most dramatic off-season changes, which is like, all right, so you want to stay like this, or do you not want to stay like this?
I get like a part of it is a lot of the money's already spent, and you kind of built the like it is kind of the team is the team sort of situation.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, you're right. It's like if you were trying to save your jobs, like if this was like a we have to push all the chips in and try to win and save our jobs right now, like eh, my guys, you probably should have spent a lot more money and like been a lot more like Tyler Warren has the chance to be a really valuable offensive weapon in the NFL, but I'm like, is he like hell? You should have been the guys to trade up for like Travis Hunter or something.
yeah,
Like Tyler Warren's not saving your jobs right now unless you like throw him 200 passes and nearly get him killed.
yeah. No, it's they're at such a weird, like a weird spot in their world.
They might be bottom five vibes as I'm looking at all these teams now.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
I think they could they could Frankenstein something together with like they kind of have pieces with
mhm.
like Tyler Warner,
I'm Tyler Warren. How are you?
Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Pierce, where it's just like
Again, they have
these aren't
talent.
like yeah, they're not exactly like, oh, you guys are the best of the best.
Hmm.
But you have enough where it's like you could technically make a solid push for like a wild card seed, but you could
You know who they
also
remind me of?
not do anything and get a better draft pick.
They are kind of the Saints of the AFC, fittingly because they're both in the South, in terms of like they kept kicking the can down the road, where like a tragedy, like it felt like all the pieces were in, the chips were set up for them to compete for a Super Bowl, and then tragedy befell. For the Saints, it was a number of high-profile losses in the playoffs, and then the existence of COVID causing the cap to pause, fucking up all of their financial schemes. And the Colts, it really is like it's crazy that how many years ago, like it's fittingly enough, and Andrew Luck retired on my birthday. We're almost like we're at least like 7 years since that happened, and they're still using that as an excuse.
Yeah,
And it's
I
like
think
at,
it.
at some point you just gotta blow it up and move on.
Yeah, you're past the statute of limitations at this point for like Andrew Luck and stuff. Like
And
being
yet they're
that.
still gonna bring it up.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, up next, an even sadder team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the saddest teams to not get the first overall pick I've ever seen. Um, a truly abysmal start to the season where they lost two heartbreaking games in a row to Miami and Cleveland, and then got absolutely romp stomped by the Bills, 47-10. And yet they kind of kept Doug Peterson around for like 5 or 6 more weeks because I guess they were like, "Who fucking? What's the fucking point?" Um, they ended up going 4-13. Their biggest changes did not come through offseason. but in terms of coaching and sort of razzmatazz, they brought in Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, who got Baker Mayfield's best season last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and brought in a new general manager. You remember the whole Liam Cohen turned down the role because he
Yes.
did not want to work with Trent Baalke. So then they finally fired Trent Baalke, who has been there through like 3 coaching regimes, and by all accounts has no real claim to competency other than like he's friends with the owner. So yes, literal child James Gladstone. He was born in 1990. We're literally only 5 years younger than him, which is such a weird thought. Um, and their first big sort of Hail Mary pass, big swing, is they traded a first round pick. They traded this year's first round pick, next year's first round pick, and a whole lot of other picks to trade up to the second pick to get Travis Hunter, the delightful wide receiver slash cornerback from Colorado, arguably the sort of star of the draft class, kind of one of the biggest names in recent college football history. Um, and yeah, in a lot of ways, it is a much
I
like the Texans, they are kind of banking on it being coaching first and then everything else second.
hmm this might be like a little bit of a hot take, especially for me, but I don't like having somebody play on both sides of the ball like their rookie season. Because it's like I think I saw it earlier today. He's formally listed as a first string wide receiver, but a second string
Hmm.
corner. I believe.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like I think that is not their best idea. I say somewhat
I
generously.
I
Um,
will say the way they talk about it, it really doesn't sound like they had a plan. And I'm like, guys, you needed to have a plan before you committed to like you needed to know exactly what you wanted to
yeah,
do
I think I
before
think
you
it
committed to
I think it
this.
might have been a situation of just like it's like Travis Hunter's just like, can I do both? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. That's it.
And and then literally thinking the logistics of like, well, defensive meetings are very intensive because it requires so much planning and so much strategy, and especially like so many defensive coordinators try to go for a more artisanal, like it's kind of becoming more of a trend now than it was in the past of like more artisanal plans for each individual offense you face. And it's like, all right, well, then when is he going to have time for that? Because he's got to be in all the offensive meetings and you got to get reps with the quarterback. I do think, I want to believe so bad because it would be so fucking cool if someone
It,
actually pulls this
yeah,
off.
it would be cool. It hasn't really been done in modern day football, but I don't think that it seems reasonable to do on such a team with a rookie.
Right.
I
Right.
guess
That
that
is
also brings up the argument though of like, yeah, we should be doing it because we're not the best team in the division. So if we get more than 4 wins, it's could be considered a success.
right. Yeah, you're right. It makes logical sense for the Jaguars to do this because they needed a big, flashy win. They need to get, again, at some point, you suck for so long, and the vibes are so bad with them. And Trevor Lawrence is like the epitome of like the annoying analytics guys defending quarterbacks who don't win, where it's like you were supposed to be this generational prospect and you can't even get to 6 wins in a crap division. Like,
Yeah,
the vibes are so putrid. It's like, no, you do this because it'll get people excited for your team. It is cool that like the biggest name in college football, probably fuck, since like what no, that might be too far. Since like Johnny Football or something. Like truly one of like the biggest names we've had in college football in quite a long time during this weird college playoff era.
yeah,
Like, that gets people in seats. That gets kids to want to be fans of your team. But also, there's a real chance he just plays wide receiver. He's cornerback every like fifth drive, and they're 6-10, and it feels like a waste of talent.
yeah. I'll give them I'll give them a little like a hint, just a hint of benefit of the doubt because last year was like Trevor Lawrence was just getting beaten up left and right
Mhm.
and wasn't on the most amazing team.
Right.
So it's like I feel like you still have a chance to believe in him, but with this investment of Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr.'s second season, I feel like you you gotta commit to Trevor Lawrence this season or not.
Right. Well, it's just so frustrating because it's like, I don't know. Again, we talk so much about nature versus nurture and like how teams screw quarterbacks. And it's objectively true that Trevor Lawrence ending up on the Jacksonville Jaguars was awful for his development.
Yes.
Like, Urban Meyer was his head coach, for God's sakes. Um, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but CJ Stroud had a shit situation on an even more cursed franchise and pulled it out. Like, everyone cites how bad Josh Allen was in his first season, but it's like he was so competitive, he was still dragging a mediocre offense forward.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like we haven't had that spark with him ever where it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna live up to the hype. And it's like, how many more coaches, how many more wide receivers, how much more money? And then you're right, the offensive line is still bad. I think, like, as excited as I am for Liam Cohen because he is a good offensive coordinator, I'm like, okay. Someone said this perfectly. If you were building a team and you had the option of all five Buccaneers linemen and all five Jacksonville Jaguars, you would just pick the entire Buccaneers line.
Yeah.
They're currently missing their star left tackle because he had a left knee procedure, and you would still take the backup before you take anyone on the Jaguars.
Yeah. No, it's it. I think the best way to describe it is they don't have anyone that feel like you might. It might be different with Travis Hunter now, but it's not game proven. Where it's just like this could be
Mm-hmm.
marketable. Like CJ Stroud's first season, it's like ball started balling out real hard, and then it's just like, all right, people were a lot more open to accepting offers for them,
Mm-hmm.
where they had like Stephon Diggs, despite him getting hurt for a season. Um, they became more marketable when he kind of just showed up and balled out. And you can't. I feel like you can't really make that argument with the Jaguars comparatively.
Right. But again, I guess that comes down to if your one big move was to bring in Travis Hunter, I'm like, how many games, and maybe this is just a crappy mercenary way to look at football, but like, how many wins does he get you?
Yeah, and
Like, even in the best case scenario.
I would like. I mean, I'm hoping you get at least close to 500 because if you get to 500, you can be considered marketable for the following season, and that's kind of
Mhm.
like what the Texans did C.J. Stroud's rookie season, where they were they pulled it off at the end. They became 10 and
Right.
7. Jaguars and Colts were sitting at 9 and 8. Um, so it's like it's like they just put it up out enough that it's just like, all right, you're marketable now. And now he's like, there's a lot more likeliness to work with bigger and more decent names just for the ability. And
Right.
the Jaguars need to have a decent enough showing with like a returning Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, uh, hopefully more healthy Trevor Lawrence. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I think I
Um,
forgot about Brian Thomas. It's just
he
like,
balled out
I
hard
really do.
last year.
I love him. I'm so fucking angry the Bills didn't trade up for him like the plan obviously
Yeah.
was. Like, we need to have a more, like, I feel like you could never enforce this, but I would love a rule in the NFL that, like, if you do not get over 500 within 5 years, like, there's some like cutoff where it's like you're not allowed to have a top, you're not allowed to draft certain players if you can't get over a 500 threshold at some point.
Yeah.
It's completely unenforceable, but like some system where we can ensure good players don't end up on bad teams all the time.
Yeah.
But again, you can't really enforce that, and it fucks up the entire balance of power in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of teams that are bad and hard to market,
The Tennessee Titans, they had the worst record in the NFL at 3-14, and the
yep.
funny thing is, I kind of like them. I think they are truly, and we talked about this in the moment. It's like, it came down to this final race between the Giants and the Patriots to get the first overall pick, and then
And
they
they
both had
both,
inexplicable wins.
yeah, they
They
both
both
won.
biffed it, and everyone's like, the Tennessee Titans, and everyone's like, yeah, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in a quarterback class, in a less than sexy quarterback class, their biggest move was bringing in Cam Ward with the first overall pick. And honestly, for me, so much of the vibes improvement for them I would say is Cam Ward. I've done a complete 180 on him where I'm
Really?
like, I actually think he's going to be great. I mean, I guess I thought he was going to be fine, but I'm like, in a draft with Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, you really ought to take one of them first. But
Yeah.
the more I ruminated on it, the more I sat on it, I really do think there is something to just that kind of like leadership element. Like, I know, like, at times the NFL is quarterback obsessed to a fault, but I really do think there is something to like it really does solve, especially for franchises like that. Basically, the entire division, like these weird sort of like. I mean, the Colts have some prestige because they had Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, and they're like old guard. But like the other three teams that are all kind of expansion teams who have never really been able to capture the hearts and minds of America. The Titans are a transplant from Houston.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
think.
think more than anything, these teams need like a lovable, likable guy to be the face of the franchise.
Mhm. I think with them, um, like Cam Ward is probably their best, was their best option, like for what they could use the number one overall pick with. And I think the difference between like him versus other teams with rookie quarterbacks is, in my opinion, the Titans' offensive line the last few seasons was never terrible. It wasn't the
Hmm.
best. It was like I would not consider it a top 10, but I would also not consider it like a bottom 5 offensive line. And if if they got something working for them, like they have Tony Pollard, Tyler Lockett, Calvin Ridley, which are a lot of like QB RB2 people.
Yes,
If
that's
you
why. That's one of my arguments where I'm like, they quietly have a really decent collection of like guys.
I think it's the argument of like fantasy football, like the kind of like the fantasy football argument where it's like, would you rather pick one first string and one third string, or would you rather pick a couple of second strings where it's a little bit like you're gonna get like you might get 50 yards, for example, just as like an obsolete number, like 50 yards out of these two guys, or would you rather have one guy get 100 yards and a touchdown and one guy get like 4 yards at best,
Hmm.
where you have to make the defense has to work for it more. And I've like their offensive line has never been their weakest point. Um, so I think it's just a matter of if that line can hold long enough for somebody to do something,
Hmm.
you can have a better season. Also, you went what is it, 3-14 last year? So it's really hard to have a worse season.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's like but they're in a weird place because again, you're right. They have like a good collection of guys who at one point seemed like they were going to be a little better than they were. Calvin Ridley like disappeared due to the gambling thing. Tony Pollard looked like he could have been one of the best running backs in the league before breaking his leg. And like it really was the and honestly their defense isn't bad. They have the thing everyone wants, a strong defensive line. And their biggest weakness last year was the offensive line was kind of butt, which they've worked on. And that like the coach actively hated Will Levis. And I will say, like, I'm on the fence because, as I said last year, I'm not a fan of Brian Callahan as a coach because I just don't think you should be screaming your head off at your like 23-year-old quarterback in the first game of the year when you're supposed to be the guy who develops quarterbacks. Like, it's very clear that he decided Will Levis was like the patsy who was going to take the fall so he could get his own quarterback. And I just don't like that as like an environmental piece. But on the other hand, I really like everything I've seen from Cam Ward in terms of leadership. Like he's been leading team meetings, he's getting in fights with his like defensive linemen to like rally the troops. He's looked fun in preseason. If nothing else, I think they're going to at least be fun because I think like what they need is he's a gunslinger. He's a guy who pushes the ball downfield. Whereas Will Levis was like making stupid ass turnovers because he refused to let a play die. So he would do a thing where he'd get pirouetted
He'd get
and
silly.
on like on his heel, like as he's about knees are about to hit the ground, he would whip the ball at a running back and watch it go 10 yards back. Like Cam Ward will throw dumb interceptions, but it's because he truly believes he can make that throw. And like I talked about honorable quarterback play, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, push it downfield and give your team a chance to make big plays. And I think that is exactly what this team kind of needs to like juice the vibe up a little bit. And also, like comparing him to Anthony Richardson, Cam Ward is the embodiment of why the NIL is good, why the transfer portal is good, because he had one D1 offer when like 2 years ago. Like he was projected to go in the fifth round, and now he's the first overall pick. And it wasn't like, and again, we can talk about like like raw talent versus positional need. It's
Yeah.
like there was no doubt he was the number one quarterback prospect, and a pretty good one at that.
Yeah, I think if any quarterback was drafted before him,
Mm-hmm.
it would blow minds.
We'll, we'll get there. Oh, we will get there. But yes, that is the AFC South. Moving on to let's head north.
Sure, we could
We
go
did the
north.
East last, right?
Yeah, we did the East
Yeah.
last. Home team on last.
All right. Yes, the AFC North. We are going to start off with the Baltimore Ravens, who are arguably the best team in the league for literally 99.9999999% of the year, except the one moment when it really mattered in the playoffs against the Bills.
Oh, that
So
is their opening game. Sunday Night
yeah,
Football. Hell yeah.
my hot take is I think they're going to rip the Bills' dicks off. But um, yes, after starting the season a weird 0-2, they kind of cruised for the rest of the season, ended up 12-5. Uh, Derrick Henry had the quietest 2,000 scrimmage yard season of all time. Could have
Hmm.
easily gotten to 2,000 yards rushing if they wanted to. For them, it was a really weird year or a really weird offseason because the team is kind of the team. It's another team where it's like the money's spent, the vision is made, um, and it is kind of another like we just have to run it back and trust that the dumb things that happened last year won't happen this year. They re-signed Ron Stanley. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins, who's still in the league. Uh, yeah, it was really like a lot of stuff around the margins, and I actually loved their first round draft pick probably more than any other teams. Malachi Starks, he much like my baby darling Kyle Hamilton is like he's a football player. He's
Yes.
not bound by your petty, silly positions, and that hurts you in like draft profiling because teams want to have a very specific vision for you. But like, he can do corner stuff, he can do safety stuff, he can do a little bit of everything, and more importantly, him becoming a part of like the safety room allows Kyle Hamilton to be more freewheeling. Yeah, I guess the vibes are fine. Like they haven't changed. It's just can we get over the hump? It's a very different can we get over the hump than the Bills because the Bills it's you know,
Yeah.
like it's a different kind of mental hurdle because whereas like the Bills it's like, "Oh, we're always going to get outcoached." It's like the Ravens beat them in the playoffs as far as I'm
Yes.
concerned. If it wasn't for the two turnovers, they would have won. If it wasn't for a dropped pass at the 11th hour, they would have won. And I know if candies and butts and Donka Shell and Christmas in July or whatever, but
Hmm.
like, you know, that still has to be factored in when you're building a franchise for Super Bowl success. Of like, yeah,
Hmm.
if we can get over this mental hurdle where we make mistakes at the worst possible time, then we're going to win it all.
I think something crazy about the Ravens' schedule is the first 4 weeks.
Mhm.
Bills, playoff contender last year. Rematch of Sunday Night Football, which is solid picks. Booking in my opinion. And then they go to the Browns, and then they have the Lions and the Chiefs. Like,
They're just getting all their hard games out right away, huh?
it's like you got all this difficulty, and then as the season goes on, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, the Packers, who could be sneaky good again, are thrown throughout there. But it's like,
And then it's all the divisional stuff.
yeah, and then there's the Bengals twice, the Steelers twice, which could go either way, in my opinion,
Mhm.
or at least Bengals wise, a little bit more than Steelers wise.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like, all right, you have potential to do like have another very clearly winning season with only like I would say like within the first month you have your three biggest hurdles of the season, and then the last preseason, like as of before the season starts hurdle, which is the Packers, isn't until the second to last week.
Hmm.
So it's like you
Yeah,
have this middle of like October and November to really just flex on teams.
right. Yeah, they're simultaneously a super fun team to talk about and a not interesting team to talk about because they're cool. Like their outfits are your outfits. Their uniforms are cool. They have a cool mascot. The vibes are immaculate.
They got
Like they
great
always bring
vibes.
players back and it's a cool vibe. Like Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the read option will never get uncool. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's objectively fun to watch them play football, but then like what else can you say other than they have to win it all. It's like the Bills. At some point it's like you're either going to do it or you don't, man. I don't know what to
Yeah,
tell you. I think compared to the Bills, I think their biggest advantage would be actually getting the number one overall seed, which is obviously a lot harder because their division is harder than Kansas City's and the
correct.
Bills. Because I think a lot of their mental hurdles would be solved by just being in their environment, being in their element. But like,
The the Bills
you got
have
to earn it.
like no real threats against them in their division, if you ask me.
Hmm.
Kansas City, like they could get like stumped by like the Broncos like once, but overall they're pretty solid in their division. Maybe the Chargers too. Um, but the Ravens are by far, I think, still the NFC North is the most difficult division.
Hmm.
Like the NFC West might be the closest in talent levels, but you throw them to some of the best teams of other divisions, and they look
Hmm.
soft. But I think Ravens, Steelers, Brown or Bengals, not Browns, for the last
Is
couple
the most
years
competitive.
is the most like Ravens still are on top, but the other two it's like they can eke out one
Right.
win, possibly two for each team, depending on
Right.
if they get like one extra call that goes their way.
Right. I would argue it's the most competitive because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
the Packers still regularly beat the Vikings and the Vikings still regularly lost to the Lions. Whereas, like, the Ravens almost always lose at least one game to the Steelers and one game to the Bengals,
yeah.
and
A
they
lot of
pretty
it is one
frequently lose
thing.
games to the Browns. Like,
Yeah.
they just beat the shit out of each other every year. Um, but yeah, what a weird, man, what an interesting division.
Hmm.
And yet, they might be the only truly good team.
Yeah. Speaking of possibly
Um,
truly good, the
Wait, we're doing the Steelers
I
next?
was gonna do the Bengals.
All right, fuck it. Let's do the Bengals instead.
Just
Well, the
alphabetical.
Steelers take more conversation. Oh, I'm looking at it based. I did it alphabetical last, and now I'm doing it based off standings.
God damn it, Greg.
I know. I'm a wild card. I'm a silly little guy. Hold on. I gotta reload all my
All right.
fucking stuff now. Hold on. Off
Bengals. They
season.
got Joe Burrow. They paid Trey Hendrickson. They got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, um, Chase Brown, who had a very good last season. They're still paying. Oh, they have Noah Fant now, and Mike
Yes.
Gesicki. Evan McPherson's still their kicker. I feel like I think their biggest hurdle is they need to be healthy.
Yeah, I do think
They
that's a
need
part
to
of
be
it, and
healthy, and they need their linemen to be strong.
yeah. I mean, the biggest thing they did the similar thing of the Texans of like, all right, we're not necessarily going to bring in an influx of talent to our historically
Mm-hmm.
bad defense. We're just going to change the coordinator. Lou Anarumo, who I'd argue is one of the better defensive coordinators in recent memory, unfortunately, like he had not been able to turn poop into gold the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of years. And again, it's so interesting with the Bengals because it's like they do draft, despite the memes suggesting they never draft certain positions, they do. They drafted a
Yes.
lot of defensive players. They drafted a lot of offensive linemen. They just didn't really pan out. And it's like, at some point, like, Lou was definitely a guy who, like, takes advantage of the talents
Mm-hmm.
there, doesn't necessarily develop it. And, like, at some point, that's not going to get you far enough. But yes, the Cincinnati Bengals, who missed the playoffs last year on the last week of the season,
Yep.
they went on a heater and won every game post week 14. Um, but
Except.
unfor- yeah, but unfortunately for them, that was colored by the fact that they lost five out of their first four and ended up in a major hole. One
Yeah,
of their big themes for this year was having the starters in for the preseason to try and jolt things.
I
Yeah, it was
think
kind of an off season where they fully embraced being stars and scrubs because they paid their two receivers and they paid their defensive linemen.
yeah, I think them throwing in some of their starters for their preseason games is like the best thing for them. Where they, it almost was like they got like they still had the jitters last season,
Mhm.
despite their first game
Right,
being the Patriots, which they lost, by the
right.
way. But I think it
Yeah,
was also
all the
still
bitching about
unhealthy
like,
Joe Burrow. I think
yeah,
Joe wasn't 100%.
right.
Um,
Well, it's just so funny that they were so mad that the Chiefs threw the last game to keep them out of the playoffs, and it's like, don't
no, that's pretty
fucking
funny
lose
though.
to the
That's strategy.
Patriots,
Yeah,
or at least if you're gonna lose, have Matt White in like we did.
yeah. I think that they're still pretty competitive
Mhm.
as a team as a whole. They just they just need to not be dumb. I don't know how else to describe it outside of that. But they have the AFC North. Actually, they're in the AFC North. They have the AFC East again, and they have the NFC North as well. I see three
Mhm.
teams. When do they play fourth team? Who's the fourth? Lions, Bengals. Oh, there it is. All right. It was also the Bears logo is also orange, and I was just like, how do they play three of four
How do they
teams from
play
the division?
themselves?
And it's just like, what the fuck is this nonsense? But
They played themselves sending that much money. I'll tell you that for free.
zing. Yeah, I think their biggest enemies themselves. I think they seem to have done some good work with picking up some frontline people, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But uh, I also think that confidence in Chase Brown is at a new high. He
Yes, he
he
is the
he balls
darling of
he
the
balls
fantasy
pretty hard.
sphere.
Um,
Yes.
last season.
Well, here's the thing. Am the thing.
There
But
it is.
here's the idea. Like they did what I would encourage a lot of teams to do when you have sort of an area of weakness. Instead of overcompensating and trying to perfect that weakness, just be an A. If you can't be great at everything, be the
Hmm.
biggest A plus you can possibly be at the thing you're already good at.
Here's
And I think they did that. They
here's the thing.
maximized their offense.
They
A.
absolutely did. Um, so they came in third in their division last year. Points for them 472. The Steelers, who won one more game and made the playoffs, got 380. It's a
Just
90 point
it's
difference.
so ridiculous.
Um, the Texans, who won the AFC South, had 100 less points for their team. They beat everybody in the AFC West on points. Actually, the only two teams in the entire division that did better than them were the Bills and the Ravens. Those both scored over 500.
Mhm.
Everyone else got under 472. Um, if the statistic was like points for, they would have been worse than the Commanders, but better than the Eagles last year. And then the Lions and Buccaneers would have been the only teams that's it would have been like just points for in the if they were an NFC team. It would be Lions, Buccaneers, Commanders, Bengals, Eagles. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of crazy that that's their thing. But
Yeah, and like maybe it's like how many more points can you score? And it's like, well, we're gonna find out. But at the same time, it's also like I think more the principle of paying so much to two wide receivers. It really is more the principle of the thing because it's like So for so long, the Bengals have been like the alligator arm penny pinchers of the NFL, or at least one of the bigger teams that does that. Like their owners are very famous for being kind of like old money, lack of a better word, in terms of like, oh, they're one of the earlier sort of football owning families. Like they're not like this new age of like billionaire freaks who have infested my hobby like a locust swarm.
Yeah.
Sorry, got a little political there. But like, yeah, they don't have like a lot of money packed up like hidden away in some vault somewhere that they can put toward guaranteed contracts and like, you know, kicking signing bonuses and all of the stuff that like gives you room on the cap but also pays your guys.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were finally able to do this at Joe Burrow's advocacy, I think was kind of huge because it's the first time it really seems like they're serious about like, no, there is a window of opportunity here and we are not going to lose it because we didn't spend the money.
Yeah. They seem to have learned, and they're paying the people that should absolutely get paid without a doubt. So it's a matter of just not being like just being smart during the season, which I think they typically do have a good head on their shoulders where I very rarely see them do something too stupid, you know?
Right. Unless it's the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
It really is just like, again, it's like for all the hand wringing about their defense, it's like they were literally if they just beat the fucking Patriots, like they would have gone into the playoffs and then anything can happen. It wasn't like, it really is just like, yeah, you're right. It's like, no, you can't have the mental errors at the start of the year and then you can have as bad a defense as you wish.
Yeah.
Speaking of someone who's just going to be all bad, the Cleveland Browns. An even sadder team than the Titans. It's crazy the Titans got the first overall pick. There's so many worse, sadder teams.
Yeah.
3-14, the highlight of the season was around week 6 or week 7. Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles and then tore it again in the offseason, seemingly freeing you from this hell where you are spiritually or you are contractually obligated to play him, but not spiritually getting at you out of the consequences of signing him. The team kind of just floundered around in hell, sometimes playing Jameis Winston, sometimes playing Dorian Thomas Robinson, one time playing Bailey Zappi. They're big. Basically, the only thing of note, well, two things of note happened for them off season. The Myles Garrett kerfuffle, where Myles Garrett pretty beautifully talked about, like, you know, I don't want to worry about Canton right now. I want to win a Super Bowl. I want a ring, not a bust.
Yeah.
And we talked about that. We talked about how many great Cleveland Browns players just never got to do anything in the playoffs. Joe Thomas I've told the story. Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame left tackle, like would get in the car after games and just start crying. And his wife would just be like, I don't know how to make you feel better about this because this is objectively awful.
Yeah.
But then he signed what at the time was the biggest contract for a defensive end with the vague promise of a plan being in place.
Yes, the vague promises of the Cleveland Browns.
We have concepts of a plan. They then proceeded to trade the second overall pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a plethora of picks and ended up getting Mason Graham. I really didn't like this trade for them. Again, it's the same problem Jacksonville has where it's like, is Travis Hunter going to change your team overnight? Probably not. But like, again, you kind of have an obligation to your fans to get top tier players at some point. And like,
Yeah.
I believe Mason Graham could be good, but like, when was the last good white defensive tackle? Politely. I say it with peace and love. But also, like, again, the vagaries of a plan of like, oh, look at all these draft picks. We'll be able to trade them and move around. And I'm like, you did this before. You got Baker Mayfield, and then you gave up on Baker Mayfield at your expense.
On Baker Mayfield.
Again, you were the
of all time.
Exactly. Getting Baker Mayfield and getting Myles Garrett was the closest any NFL team will ever be allowed to get to actively tanking without some kind of consequence coming in.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. Why would you do that again?
Because they're silly.
Right? Yeah, because it's easier than not paying Deshaun Watson a gajillion dollars. I would appreciate this more if Myles Garrett was just like, yeah, you know what, I took the money. And maybe we'll be good, maybe we won't, but I took the money. Maybe I'll do the Von Miller and like pivot to another team at the 11th hour to try and get one more Super Bowl ring. But although speaking of the draft, they also kind of had the biggest splash of the draft, drafting Shador Sanders in the 5th round. Keep in mind, this is not the only quarterback they drafted. They
Yes.
also drafted, which is the craziest part of all of this. Well, their draft was also just a fucking mess. So they
It
also
was
drafted
insane.
Quinshawn Junkins. They picked the wrong, which is hilarious because the other Ohio State quarterback running back went 2 picks later, and he looks great. And Quinshawn Junkins spent the entire offseason dealing with a court case about domestic violence and probably just ain't going to play this year. Um, and then in the third round, they draft Dylan Gabriel,
Yes.
quarterback from Oregon, who seems to be the one they actually wanted. Uh, I'm not going to accuse the owner of stepping in and saying you have to draft Shador Sanders, but would you have done this any differently if that's what happened?
Um, would I have drafted somebody else if the owner didn't say I have to draft Shador Sanders? Is that what you're saying? I'm confused by
Kind
what
of,
you.
yes.
I think.
Like, would you have drafted another quarterback that early if you knew the owner was expecting you to draft Shador at some point?
I think it's a if I felt like he was truly gonna be a bust, which I won't deny around draft time, I wasn't feeling like he was gonna be a total bust. My concerns have been rearranged since then
Mm,
about
yes.
how quality it is gonna be. But if I had faith, like if my owner was just like, hey, you're picking it, like he has to be your quarterback, pick him. I don't think I would have picked the other guy whose name I can't think of at the moment.
Dylan Gabriel.
Dylan Gabriel. Yeah,
Poor Dylan Gabriel, who looked
I
perfectly
think
competent in the preseason.
I think based off of like preseason vibes and think like post draft stuff, I th- is Dylan Gabriel like the guy? I don't know, but would I feel a little bit more confident if I was a Browns fan if we were like focused on him over Shador just because he's, for lack of a better word, a no name?
Hmm.
I think I would be, but who's to say? This this
I
team
know
is
it's silly
insane.
to, yeah, I know it's silly to focus on this, but the Browns really, again, they've punted this season. They brought Joe Flacco back for the vibes. They have Deshaun Watson still looming around like a creep in
He
a
is he
salon
still
parlor.
technically on the roster?
Yes, no, they can't cut him. That's such a cap hit. I don't think they were. I think if they could have cut him due to injuries, they would have. Um, they did not work that into the contract. But yeah, it is kind of funny because it's like Shador is kind of the biggest story for them because it's like it was such a weird moment
It was
where like people were down on him going into the draft, but it's like certainly in a quarterback needy league, someone's going to pick him at least first or second round, right?
oh man, his drop was amazing.
Mel Kiper, like they're going to have a conversation with Mel Kiper next year because he like ruined the draft coverage.
Yeah.
Like straight up, like 20 straight picks we barely talked about because he was like, Shador. And it's like, hey man, I get it. You like the kid, and like he certainly isn't this bad. He's not fifth round bad. Let's be honest
He's
about
not
that.
fifth round bad.
Like in
Nothing
a league where there are a
nothing
lot of
he
quarterbacks with
displayed was fifth round bad.
right. It's like other than maybe the mild annoyance of like his posse and like again, there's no word that he's actually a bad person. It's which again, the irony of the Browns drafting him. It's just that he has a little bit maybe arrogant as a byproduct of being, Deion Sanders' son. And sometimes you see that in his game. Like in the second preseason game he played in, he took 4 sacks, and it's because he seems to think he has Deion's speed, and he does
He
not.
did not.
But at the same time, in a league where we have a lot of quarterback, in a league where fucking Kenny Pickett went in the first round, like quarterbacks with B minus, if not lower physical traits, get drafted early all the time. And like, I refuse to believe Shador isn't at least better than like Kenny Pickett. I refuse to believe he's not better than like, I'm like, are his skill sets not at least comparable to Bryce Young, if not the pedigree of playing at Alabama? And I really do think it just comes down to like, you know, he did a lot of this without an agent. And like, if he had an agent who, like, a part of an agent's job is to be blunt with you. A part of an agent's job is to
Yeah.
like
You
sort
gotta
of get
humble.
feelers out to, yeah. Well, like literally, like put your nose to the grindstone, get a feel for like what teams are thinking of you, so you have a plan going into the draft process. And he would have just set him down and been like, hey, I know you think you're going early, but I'm not getting that vibe.
Yeah.
Like, you got to take this seriously. Like, you got to do the combine. I know you don't want to, but you got to do it. You got to take every interview seriously, like spiff spoff. And like, I feel like if he did that, yeah, someone probably would have traded up to the 32nd pick to take him.
Maybe not 32nd, but I would
At
see.
least the second
I
round.
would say I would see second or third round. Definitely not fifth.
Yeah, at
Um,
worst, like early third round.
yeah, definitely a
Um,
day two, like minimum day two talent or max,
mhm.
whatever the term I want to use here is. Um, yeah, it's like controversial adjacent, where it's just like, is he the bad guy in like all these stories like some other people have been? No, but it's like that fall, and he's not the first quarterback that drafted. I feel like it's like, is that just all attitude they're working out,
Well,
or is that talent?
you actually have a hot take that I think kind of ties into it. But it is like the lesson is Kenny Pickett never would have gotten drafted this early now.
Oh,
And like Tim Tebow wouldn't have been a first round pick.
yeah,
It's the perfect like they are the two spectrums that we're dealing with here of like distraction and also like not an A plus physical talent.
yeah,
Of like you can excuse a lot if you're an A plus talent or if you don't make a scene. And like we didn't have either of those going for us on this pony show. But like yeah, I think about Tim Tebow a lot and Brady Quinn, former Cleveland Brown. God, that's the worst part. At least Brady Quinn got that first round money pre rookie salary cap.
yeah.
Shador doesn't even get money and he's stuck on the Cleveland Browns. But
Is that like just
the
like a
discussion,
hate crime or something? I don't know.
I don't. Well, look, I feel like if Shador really wanted to make a scene about it, he probably could get at least a little bit of evidence. There was like there was a little bit of evidence of collusion. Because again, Colin Kaepernick had, like, everyone was like, well, Colin Kaepernick's not going to win this case.
Yeah,
And the NFL settled it because they're like, even if he can't get direct proof, he's going to get enough adjacent proof that makes us look real bad, man. Um, but yeah, it's just so funny because I remember when Tim Tebow, like, as he was starting in Denver, Brady Quinn had these real sour grapes attitudes about it, where he's like, yeah, if you watch him in practice, you could realize he wasn't really an NFL quarterback. But, like, when all the fans are demanding you put him in, like, what are you going to do?
yeah. You gotta
And honestly, that's the weirdest part about all this.
you
You're going to be
gotta do it
expected
for
to
the
play
money.
him. And why not? It's not like you're going to win anyway this year. The final team in the AFC North, who I guess is expected to win, the Pittsburgh Steelers, started the year very hot. Started the year 10-3, proceeded to lose 4 straight games in maybe the saddest death march I've seen from a team in recent memory. End up losing to the Baltimore Ravens 28-14, and a particularly sad 28-14, where you could really feel the Ravens kind of just stopped trying on
Yeah,
offense around mid third quarter.
that was a bullying. That wasn't
Right,
that wasn't even
that
like
game
a
was not that
DQ game.
close.
I think that's one of those games where you already know you can go like further,
Hmm.
and it's just like, let's cool off the Jets a little bit.
Right. No one needs to get strained before the actual real playoff game we have to play. But yes, their offseason was mainly defined by
Yeah.
doing away with the. Where to even begin, man? Doing
Going
away with
crazy,
the
man.
quarterback pair. Yeah. Getting rid of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields.
I think it's crazy they got rid of both of them. There, I said it.
Right. Well, I don't disagree. Like, it really sounds like they wanted to keep Justin Fields, but like, you're not gonna have like. If the plan was to get a slightly like, if the plan was to bring in Joe Flacco, like that tier of like ego,
You got your
like where
yeah.
it's kind of
You
like
got
I'm
like a
happy to be here,
You have a humble veteran that
or like fuck
will.
Daniel Jones,
I wouldn't say Daniel Jones, but I feel like Joe
just in
Flacco
terms
is
of
the
that
perfect
tier of like
example.
you're not a franchise quarterback.
That he's like the guy who's like, you might not be our guy, but
But we're kind of taking a flyer right
I
now.
can take like I can at least offer you like a lot of veteran insight. I've played so many people in this league.
Right. It does seem like the whispers around the Steelers are that a lot of them kind of wanted to just put Justin Fields back in and roll with it, but Mike Tomlin doesn't like him. So, like, it sounds
Really?
like they wanted to keep Justin Fields. because I'm like, yeah, even yeah, you probably couldn't do Daniel Jones because he's too
No,
young
he's
compared to Fields, but
yeah,
like they're like the same age. Yeah, you are kind of right on that point. But like, fuck, figure out a way to make the deal work with Kirk Cousins and just be like, hey, we'll like eat half of his salary. We can afford that. Like, can we? But we'll give you like a third round pick. Can we make that work? Like,
you
but
can
no, you picked a guy who's expecting to be the star of the show, so you have to get rid of both of them.
yeah, which is
Which leads me into saying they brought in Aaron Rodgers.
which wild, just
Also, they got rid
wild.
of George Pickens and got DK Metcalf, but that's less important than getting Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, losing George Pickens is a solid hit. Gaining DK Metcalf, I would say, is if he wasn't as aggressive as is, I would say they're kind of on the losing end,
Mm-hmm.
but they're on. But I feel like DK just being so pointlessly aggressive about things, for lack of a better term,
Mm-hmm.
because he's a very aggressive wide receiver, in my opinion.
He's the Charizard to Pickens Charmeleon in
Yeah,
terms of like similar player, more intensity.
yeah, but yeah, they also have Darius Slay.
Oh yes,
They got him too.
um,
I
but
think
yeah, I
I
hate this
don't
team, man.
I don't know if they damned themselves
They
or
damned themselves.
I
Well, all
mean
right. You know what? That's not fair. I hate
it's
Aaron Rodgers for reasons beyond just I think he's not very good at football
I mean
anymore.
yeah, there's that. I think when he was on the Jets he had one foot out the door. I think him being a starting quarterback is absurd at the moment based off of age and just how good he is. Ironically, they played Jets week 1. So that's kind
That
of
is going
funny.
to be that will win the championship belt for the most discussed, like the most discourse driving game that ultimately meant nothing.
Yeah,
Where
that's
it's like
gonna
both of these teams are kind of just in the middle. Why did we spend so much time
Yeah,
talking about
Justin
this?
Fields, who's a Jet, Aaron Rodgers, who is the Steeler now, swapped teams. I feel like it's going to be pointlessly aggressive, um, like in the media leading up
Yeah.
slash after it. But it's nothing big. I'm I'm still very pro this Pittsburgh defense. I think it's the inverse of the Bengals, where the Bengals offense is like a stick of dynamite, always going off. Which that's not how dynamite works, I know, but that's the example I'm using.
Oh.
Pittsburgh's defense is a fucking wall. Typically, they're very good defensively. Um,
Mhm.
stupid multiple tabs. Let me see.
Right, my phone died, so I had to do it on my dying
You're
Mac
dying
now.
Mac.
So it's
They let out they let 347 points against them last year. That's the lowest in their division, and by like 10-ish points,
mhm.
a little bit more. That is lower than the South led. That is lower than the entire AFC East. There is 3 teams that let out less points against them: Chiefs, Chargers,
Mhm.
Broncos, and adding a like
Oh, they also got rid of Malika Fitzpatrick in favor of Jalen Ramsey. But again, and I can't say this enough, that's not important as Aaron
yeah, Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers on the offense with DK Metcalf is I feel like building the most toxic defense or offense.
Right? I don't even know why you'd pair them up because famously, Aaron Rodgers' whole thing is like, he's like, I'm the conductor. You have to run the route exactly perfect. I time it. Drop, drop, throw. And like, that has never been DK Metcalf's
No,
thing. His
DK
thing is
Metcalf
chaos
is
and running really
yeah,
fast.
DK Metcalf is I'm going to run through this wall. And Aaron Rodgers is like, I'm going to hold the door open for you, but you were not allowed to reach for the door first. I'm going to open it, hold it open for you. You go through, then I'll close it.
Right. I mean, I guess like in how you're describing this, how you're trying to justify this is probably how they're thinking about it in their head of like if we can just get average, adequate quarterback play, competent, don't lose the game quarterback play, Like we
I'm
can get into the playoffs and at least achieve something.
if they have another 9-8 or a 10-7 season where they just sneak their way into the 7 seed of the playoffs again, it's just gonna be like what like I feel like that's when I might have said it last year, but it's like you got to do something to get coaching. Like you got to start changing coaches. Like your coaches are winners, can't deny that.
But at some point,
But you're
the
not
time runs
winner
out.
winners.
Again, Andy Reid was a winner until he wasn't, where it's like the draft picks weren't working. They couldn't figure out the quarterback post McNabb. And then it's like, yeah, sometimes it's time to move on. And maybe you'll have success on another team. Maybe you
Yeah,
won't. And maybe we'll have success without you, but maybe we won't. But this is just the grossest, most stagnant team. Like, it's
it's
fucking mosquito bog
you're
water.
gonna you're gonna get at least 8 wins. You're not gonna get more than like 11 wins in the regular season. Um, like those are just facts. You might you might have a showing in the playoffs, depending on how the rest of the division goes. But it's also dependent. And with the Ravens being in the division, they ain't they can't be they're not the tough guys. If it was them in the South or something like that, different story. But
Well, you know what? That you actually just kind of nailed on the head. Like how embarrassing the whole Aaron Rodgers thing in general. Because it's like one, again, you're putting all these hope. You've had competent quarterback play. Russell Wilson wasn't great, but he was competent.
yeah,
Justin Fields wasn't great, but he was competent. Like the best you can hope for at this point from Aaron Rodgers is competent. That like you protect him enough that he doesn't just throw the ball away. Like God, I just can't stand the way. Even when he was winning those fake MVPs at the end of his Packers run, like again, he's the embodiment of what I hate about quarterback discourse in terms of like fetishizing the touchdown to interception ratio, as if it's good that you don't push the ball downfield. It's the step porn of fucking fetishes for the NFL, where you're like, you degenerate. Why do you like this? Um, and it's like, yeah, we're talking about it. It's like it still feels like the ceiling is like 9-7, and it's like so you achieved nothing and said you just brought this toxic thing in, and it's so striking that like they kept like playing footsie with him the entire offseason, and it kind of became clear that they had a gentleman's agreement in place, but he didn't want to be there for the all of like the what's the word, all of like the non-mandatory mini camps,
yeah,
like all the early mini camp stuff, because last season he went to Egypt to figure out if the aliens made the pyramids or some stupid shit, and it was a big distraction for the Jets. So they're like, here's how we'll avoid that. We won't sign you yet. And it's like, why are you getting like pushed around by this dude who hasn't had a good season in 3 years? You're the Pittsburgh fucking Steelers.
you
You're
could
one of the
have
marquee franchises of the NFL. You're supposed to be a prestige
you
franchise.
could have made so many deals work. You could have drafted somebody decently
At
high.
least you could. At least Kirk Cousins looked good for a chunk of the year last
Yeah,
year. Like at least he was
you
like
put
pushing the
him.
ball
Like I said, if you
downfield.
put him behind like a hardier offensive line, which you get with people like Isaac Sayamalu and stuff, and
Mhm.
the defense, like that difference is drastic compared to like Pittsburgh versus Falcons.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, you could have like if you took Kirk, you could have made stuff happen.
Exactly. Instead, this just kind of feels like a sad shrug. Get the biggest name you can, and I don't know, maybe it'll work. We'll all keep our jobs.
Yeah,
It's
it seems like I think the best way to describe it is it's the job pull. You want to try and keep your jobs.
right. Or like you're never gonna lose your job, so whatever. How
Yeah,
bad could this get? It's
it's
so sad
senior
that
year.
so
It's your
yeah.
senior year.
Fuck it.
You already got accepted into college or
Who
whatever it is you
cares?
want to do afterwards.
Yeah, you're a Hall of Fame coach. You have this great, prestigious thing of never having a losing season. But, like, cool, to what end? Your fans hate this. They're sad, man. They're tired of this shit.
Yeah,
You got a
you're
fan base to
giving
hate consistent winning.
yeah, because you get into the wild card like weekend, and then it's like maybe this year we'll fight for the divisional, and that's it.
Right? I can't. Again, it's like I really don't like the Bills, like especially this year, but it is kind of underrated. Like it is really nice that like you're guaranteed at least one playoff win a year,
Yeah,
and it feels like you earned it, and it's not an accident. But Christ, man, you have to want more. Um,
yeah.
to the west. Unless you have anything else to
Nope.
say.
I was I was gonna campaign for us going west.
The Denver Broncos. Oh, why did you say Shador fell because of Rodgers? Just because they don't want to
What?
deal with distractions?
Oh, I never said he fell because of Rodgers, or at least I didn't say
Aaron
that.
Rodgers specifically was like, "Fuck this guy. If anyone drafts him, I'm gonna like release state secrets."
Did I say
Um,
that? No, I.
no, no. You just had a note in our like big sheet that said,
Um.
"Cook with me."
Oh man.
Do you not
Oh
remember writing that?
yes. I mean, it was months ago when I wrote it. I think,
Oh yeah.
and if I remember correctly, it was on. It was the ego thing. Rodgers.
Okay.
I think Shador has enough ego and pedigree. Is the word I want to use.
Yeah,
Um. Where it's
that's a
like,
good way of putting it.
yeah, sorry. Trying to remember my one single line from months ago. Um, yeah, so yeah, Rogers, he fucking tore up the Jets. That's a fact. Like the coaching staff,
Everyone
everything,
got fired.
everyone got replaced. And I feel like with Shador's um, pedigree slash attitude and everything else is why he dropped so much.
Right, because you feel obligated to
Because that
start him,
was
and if he's not good enough to get you wins, you're fucked.
yeah, because like I don't. I think the word I'm going to use is Rogers flexed his name and his power that comes with that name. It's no secret to me, or like should be no secret to everyone. It's like yeah, Shador Sanders had like arguably the most popular or known, yeah, known as opposed to popular player of that draft. Correct.
hmm
Like
Other than Travis Hunter, maybe.
Travis Hunter could be considered a
But they
contender.
kind of felt like a package deal as the Colorado kids.
Yeah. But yes, like I think, but I think Rogers' thing on the Jets, where he got everyone fired from his first, like in his first real season with them, or sorry, one and only real season with them.
Right.
Because I'm not going to count one game as a season.
It's,
But it was funny. Um,
yeah, it was really fucking funny.
yeah,
Look, he's not. He doesn't seem like the best person. It's okay to rag on him a little bit.
yeah, but I think Shador, like, I think that made people afraid of him because it's like, all right, we could pick him up, like, very early, but it's like, are we gonna get egoed into this is, like, I don't want to deal with this, and I think if he had a little bit more of the pedigree that Rogers had for like longevity, like, he could have had a similar turnout, but with how they played it, how he dropped so much, I feel like it might not have humbled him, but it humbled the perception of him. Where, yeah, like Rogers could have done anything he wanted for them. Can't do that with Shador. Shador doesn't have the ability to flex that right off the bat anymore.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it. But
Denver Broncos.
they, yeah, the Denver Broncos, a pleasant surprise. I'm gonna be honest. Someone made a good point of like, if Jalen Daniels didn't have like one of the most exciting 9 rookie seasons out of 10, Bo Nix wins Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
They ended up going 10. Yeah,
Yeah, I think Jalen Daniels did just. He had an uncanny season.
yeah, it was too good a story, and it was too perfect. But he almost threw for 4,000 yards. The team as a whole did very, very well. One of the best defenses in the league, led by Defensive Player of the Year. Yes, they ended up going 10-7, losing in the wild card to the Buffalo Bills. A game that felt a lot closer than 30. You know what it was? It really was like, yeah, rookie quarterback in his first playoff game, not necessarily having his grip on the wheel. It was 10-7 going into the third, and Ty Johnson made that insane play where he caught a ball while sideways. And then the game just kind of felt over because it's like, oh, well, the Broncos can't keep up offensively, and the defense is kind of out of gas. But anyway, they are kind of like the darlings of the offseason in terms of like vibes. Everyone is kind of penciling them in for a big jump this year.
I mean,
In
if you
terms,
look at their enhancement, they've picked up
mhm,
Evan Ingram for tight end,
yes,
solid
yeah.
upgrade. Um,
Again, arguably a top 10 tight end in real life, just he's infuriating in
yeah,
fantasy, so no one wants to give him credit for that.
but also they picked up Dre Greenlaw and Hafungo from two like stars of the 49ers defense. That is
Mhm.
insane. If you like ask me, that was a top tier defense when they were on it.
Right.
And
And my favorite pick from them was Jade Barron, the cornerback from Texas, who was considered a top 10 prospect by a lot of people,
yes,
who fell all the way to 20th.
which
Again, if you
lucky.
can't be perfect at everything, be A plus plus at something specific. And now they have, like, bless you, they
No,
have one of the best defensive back rooms in the league.
yeah, I think yeah they flexed in the right spots in my opinion
Hmm.
with acquiring some like a better backfield where you can you can rely on your defense more. They didn't allow many like a crazy amount of points. They allowed a little bit on the underside with 311,
Hmm.
but with this enhancement of their defense, I don't expect them to go 10-7 again. I think their defense is going to hold a lot more.
Right. And you trust just like another year under the system, another year of like figuring out what Bo Nix can and
Yeah.
can't do. Again, it's like he is kind of like, again, we all clown on him for like throwing the ball short. It's like, okay, so
Yeah.
passing wise, he's a little bit of like later years Drew Brees, where it was more
Mm-hmm.
about efficiency. But unlike Drew Brees, he can actually kind of run a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, for me,
And
it really is just like, I wish they could have improved running back a little more. Otherwise, I really would be like, I
yeah.
don't see why they can't compete to get to the conference final.
It's it's yeah, and I think them not like they picked up Dobbins, I believe, and is RJ
Mhm.
Harvey a rookie this year or is this his second year?
Yes.
He's a rookie.
Um,
Second round of 25.
uh,
Yeah. So he's a
yeah.
rookie. I think
Yeah, and he's good, but it was such a sexy running back class. I'm like, are you sure you can't trade up and
yeah, a little
get
bit
Travion
questionable,
Henderson?
but I think keeping him with Stutland and Mims
Mhm.
and not bringing in anyone super crazy for like as an additional wide receiver is only beneficial. Like sometimes you need enhancement, like
Mhm.
with the people, but I think with Bo Nix's abilities, keeping the same people and enhancing things that he doesn't really have to like throw to is going to help
Right.
put them a little bit over.
Right. Yeah, it's always so funny because it's like Sean Payton teams are always way more talented offensively than you think they are because it's like Gordon Sutton's good, Marvin Mims is exciting, like maybe Franklin can be something, but it's always just like, but it's always colored by like the fact that they feed the ball to everyone, so no one has the sexiest stats, and you're like, God damn it, man, I need.
Mm-hmm.
He is like the anti-fan. It feels like he torments fantasy owners. Again, that was the Reggie Bush thing of like, why don't you just give Reggie Bush the ball 30 times a game?
Yeah.
Like the Lions and the Dolphins ended up doing. But yeah, I'd argue the vibes are almost too good. Like if we're talking like if we were to rank the top five good vibes versus bad vibes teams, I'd find it hard to argue that the Broncos wouldn't be a top five team right now.
Um, definitely top 10. I've never really thought of that argument, so I can't guarantee top 5, but I would say they're definitely top 10 without thinking of that it hard.
Yes. Next up, the Los Angeles Chargers. Their first year under the new Harbaugh regime went better than expected,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe about as expected. A solid 11-6 run. Felt like they figured some things out as the season went along, and as the Greg Roman offense. One thing like Greg Roman is kind of infamous for being like a good, competent offensive coordinator, but he can't elevate his teams. He was famously the coordinator for Josh Allen's first years and Lamar Jackson's early years, and then he gets replaced by someone who makes a more modern passing offense. But in terms of like getting the Chargers out of this kind of depressive rut they've been, it worked pretty well. They weren't the best running team, but they were competent. They were able to pass. Ladd McConkey emerged as a solid number one option in a solid offense. They ended up kind of getting shellacked in the playoffs, but it was another one where it's like that was the game where it looked like classic Houston Texans of like classic Houston Texans, but it
Classic.
looked closer to the year before of like winning on
Oh
the
yeah.
insane margins, chaos among the
All
well
out burn.
organized. Yeah, like crazy plays where he's running around six ways to Sunday and somehow manages to like squeak out the play, um, that sort of thing.
Mm.
So I feel like they could have squeaked that game out. It just got so ugly at the end. I
It
feel
got
like
ugly
the vibe.
so fast. It was not pretty.
Yeah, yeah. Justin Herbert threw multiple
Four.
interceptions at
He
the
threw four
end. Oh,
interceptions.
I thought it was three.
But
Um, I really thought it was three, man.
yeah. But like you also have like in that game, Lad McConkey getting an 89-yard reception touchdown in the
Hmm.
fourth quarter when you're kind of like a little bit down and a little bit out. And then they blew the extra point. Just throwing that out
Yeah,
there,
I
big
for
time.
me the biggest moves for them. Talking about the sexy running back class, they were able to get a Mario Hampton, the UNC running back.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, like, if the plan is to kind of lean into a more sort of medieval, like, we're going to really emphasize it's what they wanted to do last year, but did not have the running talent to do.
Yeah.
The idea of, like, really grinding the ball and just allowing the play action pass to be Herbert's bread and butter. I do think that's a lot better. But at the same time, they did lose Rashawn Slater to a long term injury. That's kind of the biggest move of the offseason,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And it's like when you built your entire vision around having being like, oh, these are going to be the two best tackles in the league. Um, Losing that kind of makes everything feel the ick sneaks in. I'm curious how you feel about this team because now
I'm
I'm a little hesitant.
I'm I think that this is the season for them to decide their fate for the next 5 years, where they have some upper talent, some lower talent, back and forth, and they've been kind of at this. I can enter into I can probably get into the playoffs, but I can't guarantee I'll win in the playoffs or I'll stay in the
They've
playoffs.
gotten over the mental hurdle that haunted the Chargers of like we can never get past the hurdle. Something
Yeah,
always goes wrong. At least I feel like based off vibes, they've gotten over that hurdle.
yeah.
But are they a good team?
I think it might come down to their schedule this season. It doesn't help that their division has Broncos and Chiefs, who I'm a little bit more over on.
Mm.
Um, I think it's just gonna come down to what seems like, for lack of a better term, like the throwaway games, like against. I would say they're relatively on par with like the Commanders, but like the Dolphins, the Vikings, like I have faith against them against like the Giants and Colts and Titans, but like the Steelers, like you're out of division, weird level of comparison where it's like I'm not gonna blow you out like I could with like hypothetically the Giants if they play like last year,
Hmm.
but I'm not going to lose to you violently like one of the. They don't play a lot of big teams last year, but they played the Chiefs twice and the Eagles. Um,
Hmm.
and they do play the Broncos twice, but I think that's going to be more of a one-and-one situation.
Yeah.
Um,
This division could get interesting on that front.
yeah, but so I think it's going to be those like weird what appear to be throwaway games, where or throwaway games isn't really the word I want to use, but like the toss-ups where it's like it's not really going to matter in the long run how they do
Hmm.
against like the Cowboys or the Texans because they're about on par. But I think that might be like one blowout there could knock them out.
Right. This
It's
this team does feel like like it's gonna be vibes day and night
you're
of like if
you're
they can
gonna be
keep the wins
sink or
going.
swim this season.
Yeah, like Harbaugh's specific brand of just being real fucking weird, man. It feels like it's going to be most apparent here, where it's like, yeah, that stuff's fun when you're good, but like as the end of his tenure in San Francisco attested, when it starts to fall apart, boy howdy, is it miserable.
Yeah.
Yes, the Kansas And again, and just in general, Justin Herbert's so weird because again, he's another one of those like analytical darlings where you're like, you don't understand, he doesn't have help, and
Statistically, he makes sense, but also he,
it's like you got to win a playoff game though, man.
yeah,
Like,
I think they enhanced the lineman enough with picking up Becton, who was a
mhm.
beast last year. Picking him up enhances it. That might be the little like flip of a switch, kind of like how like with the Broncos, where it's just like you guys are like one flip of like getting someone like 10% better that could make you into a next tier team. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying like Becton is that guy for them, but he might be that difference maker where it's just like, all right, we're gonna be better than 11-6. We can, or if we're gonna be 11-6, we can actually like hang out with the crew of that level.
Yes. Uh, Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, folks, y'all know the story. I don't. Not enough people talk about Fantastic Four for that to be a topical reference,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, there's a disadvantage to again. It's like this is why they're bringing fucking Robert Downey Jr. back because like. Yeah, that drives mainstream discourse. Just making kind of a cool, fun movie is not that doesn't connect to anything. Doesn't really do that enough for people anymore. But anyway, they won 15-2 and lost in the Super Bowl in cartoonishly awful fashion.
Oh,
Um,
sad. It was the scores. The final score says 40-22, but they got it was 40-6 before the Eagles started putting in like entire backup shifts. Not like, oh,
mhm.
let's just play like the second string running back now and let Saquon rest. It's like, no, here's our entire second string offense. Here's our entire second string defense, where it's just like that's an embarrassing 22.
But yes, sort of the razor thin margins they were leaning on, depending on coaching competency, not turning the ball over, and like somehow overcoming like parts of their team just not working right finally came to a head.
Mm-hmm.
Losing Rasheed Rice finally came back to bite them in the butts because they simply did not have enough explosive playmaking. Their entire sort of structure for the past game came to a head. Their offensive line not really working out how they wanted to, kind of
No.
imploded because Kingsley Sadamantia not being able to be a reliable left tackle forced Thule, whatever his name was, to move from his guard position, which made the interior line weaker. And Isaiah Pacheco coming off a leg break, they just could not run the ball. Really, the only, again, in general, that whole game was like watching a car crash right in front of you and going like, holy shit, that could have been us.
Yeah.
But at least the Bills could run the ball, and that might have at least, they wouldn't have won, but they would have had a puncher's chance. It wouldn't have been that. But anyway, this offseason was kind of dedicated to doing what they did the last time they lost a Super Bowl in kind of embarrassing fashion, reimagining the offensive line. Jalen Moore was signed for a big contract. Their first round pick was Josh Simmons, who,
Mm-hmm.
coming out of camp, sounds like he's doing pretty well. And yeah, it's the vibes are weird because it's like, it feels like if it's ever going to happen, if the
It's.
bottom's ever going to fall out and they're going to like not be good for a year, it would be this year.
Mm-hmm.
But we've gone broke betting on the AFC West being competitive before. We've gone very broke on like reimagining the AFC West.
Here's here's what I think is going to be their killer. So the last 6 weeks of the year, final six
Mhm.
weeks, like
Their schedule's
is
fucking weird, man. They have
is
so many
yeah,
primetime
like
games.
so like starting at week 18 and moving up is Raiders, Chiefs, or Raiders, Broncos, Titans, Chargers, Texans, Cowboys, where it's like kind of like a 50-50 split of the Broncos, Chargers, and Texans might be able to pull something out against them. Cowboys, Titans, Raiders, I'm not 100% sure. But that's their final week. They start off with Chargers, Eagles, Giants, Ravens, Jaguars, Lions. So it's like you are going to have three of the hugest hitters from last season every other week. And then you start with the Chargers who you could technically go 50-50 with. And then you still have to play like you have like the Giants and other teams going throughout um like this time period. are you,
Mhm.
stranger, trying to call me at this hour? Yeah. So, and then it's like you still have Bills, Broncos twice thrown throughout there. So I think that's going to be. I think you can have your vibes super harsh early on for the Chiefs,
Right.
and if you can't get over that vibes harshing, you're fucked.
Right. I think it's just so interesting them talking about it because I think a part of it is like we do underrate. Like they've basically played an entire extra season of playoff games over the last 3 years during this quest for a three-peat. Like it always feels like something's gone wrong with injuries or like vision where they didn't really get to
Oh,
put
that
the team
cross.
on the field. Oh,
Hello.
like completely.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. I'll be there in a second.